setup? Setup is composed of a bunch of different things, okay? So first off, I could look at it as how wide my stance is. Second off, I could go, where are my hand position? Where's my ball position? I usually play it back, middle, or forward, okay? Where are my balance points? Are they on my toes or are they on my heels? Where are my armpits? Come on over here, Leo. So what I would say armpits out in the toes would look like this, right about there. Armpits back on my heels would be more like this, straight up and down. And then on my balls of my feet would be here. And I'll take you through what I prefer. Now, what is the posture gonna look like? Do I want a really stiff back? Do I want a rounded, soft look? Or do I want somewhere in between, okay? Where is my grip gonna be? Do I want a stronger grip, and what makes it strong? Do I want a neutral grip, or do I want a weaker grip? Now, those are all things that I look at, and why do I care about setup, okay? The main reason that I care about setup is because it creates consistency. Not only are you doing the same thing every day, you're putting things in the same ball position. So if I said ball position first, I could say that would be on the front of the stance. That's the middle of the stance. That's back in the stance. Now, what is that gonna create? That's gonna create more consistency in contact, okay? If I get somebody playing it way up in the stance or way back in the stance, that's gonna dictate a lot of different things, okay? Why do I want balance points out here or over here, okay? If I have my balance points in a good position, what happens is I can turn through the shot, okay? So that means that if my armpits are out on my toes, you're gonna see a lot of different things, okay? You're gonna see players not be able to turn. You're gonna see them standing up through impact, and most people talk about early extension or humping, and that's dictated by setup, okay? And how your posture is and where your balance points are at. So when I look at a player's setup is probably the most important thing for consistency. So when I look at a player that has a really stiff back and they're in this arch here, this is called lordotic curve. When you see people accentuate this lordotic curve, what they end up doing is being too tall, so they end up bending over at the waist too much. Now their armpits are out on the toes. And so most players out in the toes have early extension, okay? I never accentuate this lordotic curve. Now, a lot of other players will sit back on their heels, and you can't turn from here, so now you have to jump up to get the club inside. So how you set up is very, very important. How your armpits are at address and how you hang is very important. And I'm gonna go through how I teach it. But the first thing is why do I use all these things? The reason, and the main reason, is to create consistency. Why do I have a grip that's strong compared to a weak? Why do I let some players keep their grip on in a normal position? So if you look at Matt Wolff, has the weakest grip I've ever seen, okay? But he also has the most flexion, and we're gonna talk about that to match it up. When I get a player who's very strong, that means the face is more closed, and the more closed it is, I don't want flexion because that face would be too closed. So why I pick all these things and why are they so important is because they create consistency in contact, start line, spin rates, ball curve, all kinds of stuff are so important when you're talking about setup, and that's why most tour players have sticks, alignment sticks for their alignment. Feet too far left, feet too far right, ball position forward, ball position back. Where your tilts are at. Do I have too much tilt? Do I need more tilt for a driver to hit up on it? Do I need less tilt? We're gonna go through all those things and what I feel like are most important to create the consistency you need. But those are a lot of things we're talking about. Now, we hear a lot about the width of the stance. You can turn more from here. You have more stability from here. There's a lot of nonsense you're gonna be hearing about setup, okay? So if my feet are narrow, it makes me taller. So a lot of players are gonna bend over more, which means they can't turn or they're gonna early extend. So the width of the stance is very important for me to actually reach the ball without being out of balance. So now what I would say is after you look at all those things, whether it's grip, whether it's setup, how much tilt I have, ball position, where my alignment's at, how far I'm out my toes, how far back I am, how much I round, where I play the ball, all those things are gonna create consistency, and those gotta be the same every day, okay? So how do I teach them? Leo, come on over here. So the first thing that I do when I'm teaching somebody is for alignment, what I do is if this is in line with there's an orange flag out there and somebody wants to hit it straight first, I try and get things parallel here. So I look back here, and this one will be for target, and this will be parallel for my feet to be parallel. Now, some players duck their feet out. That's ducked out, that's square, okay? So when you look at a player and they duck their feet out, and then they put their toe line there, realistically, their heel line, go ahead and put that there, Leo, please. You can step back here and realize that your alignment is not gonna be good. That alignment's gonna direct you to be more into out, and now you're gonna get more hooks and blocks depending on your club face. So always check from heel line. There's my heel line. And then when I duck it out, my feet will be a little bit left. Now, how much do I duck my feet out? That's another topic that I didn't bring into, okay? So some players were taught to duck both feet out. Some were just taught to duck the left, keep this one square. What's the reasoning behind this stuff? That's where I think there's a lot of confusion, and that's why I'm doing these videos, because I'm taking the confusion out, okay? So when people don't have mobility, they can open that foot up and it creates more rotation. For most players that have flexibility, you can keep that foot more square, okay? Now, a lot of coaches teach a square foot because they feel like they can get more pressure to push off, and some players like to be able to turn better, so they duck the foot out. So that's optional to me, depending on somebody's flexibility and what their problems are in the golf swing. So when I'm looking at it, the first thing I look at is the alignment, okay? Once somebody gets aligned, then I check their ball position, make sure it's not too far back or too far forward. And when I look at somebody right off the bat and they're releasing the club really early, okay? They always have the ball position back. And the reason they have it back is because it helps their contact, okay? But it's not optimal for distance. It's not optimal for ball flight. It's not optimal for curve control. So there's a lot of things. So I like the ball right off the bat off my left ear after tilt. That means if I was tilted here, I'd put it here. If I had no tilt because I wanted the ball to go lower with a wedge, I'd have the ball more forward and I'd have my left ear over it, okay? And the longer and longer the club goes, the more we play it up, but I always play it off my armpit, okay? For like a driver. And then I have tilt, and we're gonna talk about that too. So those are the first two things I do, is the alignment, okay? And then at the ball position and hand position. For a lot of players that I teach, hand position, because they do a lot of drills like this would be more Nicklaus. Left arm and shaft are in line, okay? You can have your hands more back, but most of my players have their left arm in line with the shaft, okay? So that's a good way to look at it. So that's an easy way, because if something was heavy here and I had to actually move it away compared to just pivot, it's gonna be a lot easier to take that thing away. So that would be the next thing. Now, grip is a huge topic, all right? So when I talk about grip, I always have, this is what we call the snuff hole right here, okay? And most of my players are over center to right center. And the reason I do that is because if my arms hang from my side, they hang about 45 degrees. So that's straight, that's 90 degrees. So 45 lets my arms just hang where they're at with the club square. If I put the club on like this and let my arm hang, that's gonna close the club face. So now I'm gonna be forced to get my handle maybe too far forward, okay? And if my club is like this and my grip's really weak, most people think that's closing the face. But realistically, if I let it hang, that's opening it. So that's gonna cause a lot of players to release. Now, like I said before with Matt Wolff, his grip is this weak. So when he used to come down, his face would be like this and he'd flip it. So I taught him to get more flexion here. I tried to get him a stronger grip, but he didn't like the feel. So I have to have these matchups, and I have to have people understand the grip so they can match up their release. And when I say your release, am I early releasing? Am I holding it off longer? It also depends on speed. If somebody like a junior has a really strong grip and their handle's really far forward, or they have a lot of flexion, the face is really closed, and they're matching that face up and their handle's too far forward and they have no speed, they're not gonna get the ball up in the air. So a junior is gonna be more on the weaker side and have the face more toe up. A stronger player is gonna be here, have the handle more forward, which is gonna give you more distance and more trap on the ball or more compression is the right word. So when I look at grip, how I teach for most players is a neutral grip, okay? Very neutral. And so this is right here. I put this right through this position. Does anybody have a pen? Thank you. So if you look at grip, most of my players, when I take this, will be right through about this position. And I'll do one on the snuff hole. Okay, so right about here is where I have most of my players in this position. Now, when people do it, they really nestle it in and grip it. I like to hold it like a steering wheel, really light, and just let it just fall in there, and I don't let it slide back up high. This is where most amateurs go. They go really high in the palm pad, which makes this dot way over here, which makes the face very open, which makes us release early, okay? So always check your grip and make sure it's more down here, and when you do it, most players look at this and go, oh, is this right? And then their dot's over here. So you have 2 checkpoints. Let's get this dot over here, and then when you do it, make sure it doesn't sneak back up. So you've got 2 checkpoints, keep it there, keep it over the center to right center, and now your arm's hanging and the club stays square, rather than way over here is gonna hang and that thing's gonna be closed, way over here it's gonna be open. Now, the trail hand, I don't hold it any in the palm, okay? I hold it more in the fingers. And now this palm rides higher and it rides up into this pocket. So you can see there's a pocket here that I like to place it in. I don't put it over here and I don't put it way under here. I put it right in this position. And now all of a sudden, my setup is in a good position. And this V right here, I like this to be from the armpit to the nose, okay? Now, why that varies is that the more it's here, it's stronger. That means the face is gonna close. The more if my face is closing, I can have somebody put it on top and it helps a lot of players really quick. So that would be considered a neutral grip. And how does that match up at the bottom? So with that grip that's neutral, I can have this thing and flex this wrist, and we'll get into that. That closes the face more. Or I could just get a stronger grip and not think, and that would close the face naturally. So there's a lot of ways, and we're gonna get into that, how I match people up on setup, but I'm just teaching setup right now, okay? Now, after grip, I get somebody in a proper posture. Johnny, come on over here, please. So Johnny, this is Johnny Ruiz. He's a professional golfer, also a coach here. Go ahead and set this up. Now stand up straight up and down. What I do is I put a fist behind him and say, move back to the fist, right there. Now I say round the middle and upper spine, and the neck is down. Most players, now let me see the green one, the armpits are over the balls of the feet. So these are the back of the armpits here. These are over the balls of the feet, okay? Now, if he has a stiff back, kick your butt way back like that, and now move away from the ball, and now his armpits are gonna get way out in the toes, and that's where most players are. Or they sit their butt back too much. Get your butt back. Now his armpits are too far back. Now, where would you wanna move right away if your armpits are there? Right to the toes? And now he's close to the ball, now he's gonna suck his butt in, and that's where early extension comes from. So kick your butt back too far, okay? Don't get further from it, just kick your butt back too far. Okay, so now from this position, most players will move to their toes also. And now all of a sudden, they're gonna counterbalance into early extension. So set up now, Johnny. So now that your butt's not far back, stand back up, and we move back a fist. Boom, now round it. Now when you go back, your butt will wanna move more back. You'll be able to turn, and on the way through, you'll be able to turn through the shot, okay? So that setup and those balance points, the armpits over the balls of the feet, and the rounding of the back is very, very important, okay? So set up right now, Johnny. So you see how his spine is rounded here. I want him to go into extension without turning, okay? You see how he did that? Now extend your hips up. I don't want that. I just want your spine to extend, okay? See that extension? As he extends with left bend in rotation. Now, that's confusing. Move out of the way real quick, Johnny. So this is left bend that turns around like a clock, okay? So you're gonna see that my spine, if I extended it and turned, my head didn't move off the ball. Now I go back into my spine extension or flexion, and my head's moved off the ball. So when you start to extend the spine, as you have, if you were up here like this and you had no spine, your spine extension's already in and you're out on your toes and you have left bend, you're gonna fall right on your face. That's why everybody counterbalances and humps the ball or early extends. So by rounding the spine, I have this reserve with left bend. It's like pulling a cord. My head can stay centered while my arm works properly, okay? It doesn't work like this, but that's the feel of the body. The spine's going up, not the hips. Spine's going up with the left bend in. Now jump in here and demonstrate, Johnny. Yep, go top. So his head never drops. So now he's gonna wanna go back down and compress and then get through. And that's all because of setup. Now set up again out in your toes. Now from here, the first move most players are gonna do is go straight back into balance and a flat shoulder. So now they have no leverage, all because of setup. Now set up again and stay in it. And then what would you do through the ball? You jump right into the ball. So that setup and those balance points and having a rounded spine are very important to me because all the legends were there. You look at Sam Snead, Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan, Greg Norman, Nick Faldo, Lee Trevino, Jack Nicklaus. I could keep going on, Tiger Woods. They all had a rounded spine, and then all of a sudden, everybody thought this was more athletic if you were in prison, okay? That's the only way that's athletic, okay? Because it's gonna make you get sucked under at impact, okay? So round that spine, have your butt back, only a fist. So if your butt's sucking in because your setup's bad, and you want it to go and move back more, don't stick it back more. It's gonna cause it to move more in. So get it more under you, then it'll wanna move back and back. So that's the key. And then if your butt's not back, then you're too tall, you can't get to the ball. So you gotta round your spine to reach the ball. And that's the reason I set up with the curved spine and my butt not so far back, okay? So that's a huge part of it. Now, the next thing is, go ahead, set up, Johnny. From this setup, now we have a good grip, good ball position, good alignment, good spine. Now, where is your pressure, Johnny? Depending on your tilt. It's on the balls of the feet first off, but right to left. Turn and face the actual camera now. Now, if he has a lofted club, let me give you a lofted club. And Leo, do me a favor and grab me a driver. So with the lofted club, that has the most loft on it, okay? That's a loft vector, okay? So would you want a lot of tilt on that? Do you need to get the ball higher? No, you need to get it lower. So stand this straight up and show them where tilt would be. That's 0 degrees of tilt. Now 10 degrees of tilt would be right about here. Now that would be for a driver because a driver's 8 degrees, we want to hit up on it. And we want to actually have some tilt to hit up on it. So we start with a little tilt, about a 10 degrees. So go ahead and grab that. So it's gonna go from 0 degrees of tilt to about 10 degrees of tilt. And now he's here. And where are you tilting from? Are you tilting from your pelvis or are you tilting from your right bend? Right bend. Which is just a common thing. People say, drop your right shoulder back, okay? Now after tilt, the ball position will be off the armpit for the driver, okay? So that'll be about right there, okay? Now, if we had a wedge here, let's go back to a wedge, there's gonna be no tilt because we wanna get a little lower. And now we have a 7-iron here, and we'll have about 2-3 degrees of tilt. So it'll gradually, the longer the club, the more tilt you're gonna get to offset the loft to get some height, okay? So that is exactly the last part of it. And then one more thing, Johnny, jump on it again. If I set you up armpits over the balls of the feet and I gave you this club right now, where do your hands go? They get closer, so get closer to the ball. See that right there? So his arms are hanging from his side. We're not reaching. So everybody goes, you should be 2 inches from the ball. You should be a fist away from the ball. That's some BS, okay? So the fact is if he had a long club, look at this long club. Where's this long club going? It's falling into the ground a lot earlier than this club is gonna fall, not here. It's gonna fall closer to him, but his arms are hanging and his armpits are over the balls of the feet, neck rounded, balances on the balls of the feet. Now, move out of the way real quick, Johnny, please. So with the driver, because I have tilt, I never tilt my pelvis. I just tilt right here. Now I have about 55 to 60, 40 on the right. With less tilt, I'm gonna have more pressure in between the feet at 50-50, okay? And then my pressure is gonna be on the balls of the feet at address, and then it moves with this left bend back to this heel, then back through the heel through impact. And that's all the setup stuff you need to know. If you guys are looking for more tips or more information about the golf swing, I've got lots more on George Gankus Golf. Click the link in the description and you'll have all the info you could ever need.